Good morning, everyone. Welcome to part 2 of WPVM's City Council Primary Candidate Forum. This is a public service forum of a public service of WPVM. Dr. Chris Cooper is the moderator. He is the Robert Lee Madison Distinguished Professor and Director of the Hare Institute for Public Policy Institute in Western Carolina University. Bo Hess, Tod Leaven, and Kevan Frazier are our candidates today. WPVM is honored to be able to present these programs to the community thanks to our FCC license. And if you would like to see more political programming that we have done in the past, go to our WPVMFM.org page and click on the politics button at the top of the screen. Dr. Cooper, I'm turning this over to you. Welcome, everyone, and have a great forum.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having us and for making the space. I want to thank everybody for listening, and I also want to extend at the beginning a thanks to our candidates. I don't think we spend nearly enough time in American politics thanking the folks running for office, right? We need a few things to run this democracy. Yes, we need voters. Yes, we need engaged citizens. We also need good candidates, and we need competitive elections. And so appreciate these folks taking time out of their schedule to run for office and to speak to the public. Before we get to the candidates and their platform, just going to remind everybody a couple of quick things about the election. Look, this election affects everyone who lives in Western North Carolina, not just the people who live in the Asheville city limits, but if you want to vote in this election, you need to live in the Asheville city limits. That is maybe a little bit more confusing than you might think it is. So if you're not sure if you're registered to vote or if you live within the city limits, no problem. Go to the Buncombe County Board of Elections website. You can look up a sample ballot, see if it's there, or just call the Buncombe County Board of Elections. We're very fortunate in this region to have county boards of elections that do a really good job making sure the voters are informed and that our votes are counted safely and securely. In-person early voting begins very soon, begins February 15th, runs through Saturday, March 2nd at 11 sites throughout Buncombe County. Election day itself is Tuesday, March 5th. This is a nonpartisan election, meaning that regardless of which primary you select, you will see these candidates on your ballot. So Democrat, Republican, or if you choose the no party affiliation ballot, you're going to see these folks. Speaking of candidates, there's 8 of them on the ballot, and your job in this primary will be to select 3. And then the top vote getters will then move on to the general election ballot, where you'll see some of them again. Ultimately, 3 people will fill seats on the Asheville City Council. So now we'll move on to our forum. The way this is going to work, we're going to start in just a second with 3-minute opening statements from each of the 3 candidates who are joining us today. Once they're done, I'll then begin to ask some questions. Each candidate's going to have 2 minutes to respond to the questions, and then we'll have up to 2 minutes for rebuttals afterwards. Okay, 2 rounds per question. And so with that at the outset, we will welcome Bo Hess to give our initial opening statement.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Asheville. Thank you, Dr. Cooper. Thank you, WPVM, for this opportunity. My name is Bo Hess. I am a candidate for Asheville City Council. I am a proud social worker, therapist, addiction specialist, law enforcement trainer, professor at Western Carolina University, community advocate, and every day I work intimately with the people of Asheville to bring pragmatic solutions to very complex issues. You know, I am very well equipped to address some of the major issues that Asheville has to address: homelessness, crime, addiction, and mental illness. And I am a collaborator that can bring people together and work towards incremental solutions that benefit all Asheville residents. My campaign platform stands firmly on these pillars. 1, making sure that all Asheville residents have economic security and stability. I am running for the person in East Asheville who has seen their rent go up $200 or $300 just in the past few years. I'm running to make sure that we have safety in our community, in our streets. We can't have a thriving Asheville if we don't all feel safe to live, work, and play right here at home. And number 3, I'm working to provide humane solutions to our houselessness and to our crime and to our addiction and mental illness issue. I've spent the last 10 years training law enforcement in crisis intervention techniques to more humanely deal with populations who are in the middle of a crisis. And I am committed to making sure that we have green spaces. We are funding multimodal transportation. We're enhancing community centers, understanding that loneliness is a top public health issue, and a more integrated Asheville is a more connected and a thriving Asheville. And then number 5, I'm making sure that we fortify Asheville's critical infrastructure against both man-made and against natural disasters, making sure that no matter what happens, we have emergency communication, cell phone communication, food, water, power, gas, and we have the things that we need. And nothing like last December's water crisis ever happens again. I am committed to bringing solutions to Asheville residents. Vote Bo Hess and go to electbohess.com for more information. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Bo. And now we'll go to Tod Leaven.
So my name is Tod Leaven, and I'm a candidate for Asheville City Council. I first moved to Asheville in 1985, so I've seen a good deal of change here in our wonderful city. I am father to 3 amazing daughters and husband to a wonderful wife. My wife is not only my life partner, she's also my law partner. I am an attorney. My wife and I have our own law firm. I started off as a land use and homeowners association lawyer here in town, and now I do primarily veterans disability benefits, which leads me to being a veteran. I was in the Army. I was lower enlisted, went in as a private in 1998. I served for 6 years. My last tour of duty, I was a 50 caliber machine gunner in the war in Iraq in 2003. And I came back to Asheville in 2004. I went full-time to UNCA, and I worked full-time at the Grove Park Inn. I did my law school at UNC in Chapel Hill, which I still am an adjunct professor teaching a class in military and veterans law. So that's a little bit about me. The main reason why I'm running for city council is for core city services and fiscal responsibility. I think it's great that we have so many visionaries, but I think we also need someone who can turn on the lights in the morning and pay the bills, and to make sure that before any major expenditures are done on behalf of the city, a proper amount of due diligence occurs. When I say core city services, I say public safety, water, infrastructure, transportation. There needs to be a recentering of the city into the main reason why people live in a city in the first place. In addition to core city services, I think affordable housing is incredibly important. I think it's a shame that people who serve our great city can't afford to live in the great city. And I also think that this explosion with the unhoused right now really stems from the fact that no one can afford to live in Asheville. So that's about it. Short and sweet. Core city services, fiscal responsibility, and affordable housing. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And to Kevan Frazier.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks to you and WPVM for hosting us today. For the past 25 years, I've been a historian of Asheville. I've gotten the chance to teach the Asheville story as well as to research and learn about the folks who've shaped our history. And a few years ago, I got to write a little book called Legendary Locals of Asheville, and got to focus on the folks who often aren't the figureheads of Asheville history. And there's one person in particular who really caught my attention, and I dug deep into her story, and that was Thelma Caldwell. Miss Caldwell came in the 1960s to head up what was then the all-black YWCA, but ends up being tapped to be executive director to bring the two Ys together. And that was not an easy task, and it took her years to do it, but she did it. She was successful, and she did it through collaboration. She brought folks around the table who not only had never been around the table, they didn't know each other. They didn't even know each other existed. That kind of collaboration is what I think is important for us to move forward as a city. I work as the executive director for Western Carolina University's programs in Asheville, and I'm also a small business owner. I own Well Played Board Game Cafe with a friend of mine. And, Well Played, we opened up to create a place that folks could feel welcome and safe. And that's what I want to see in our city. I think that Ashevilleans from Oakley to Malvern Hills and from Grace to Royal Pines want to live in a city where we feel welcome, we feel safe, we feel that there's a sense of belonging. We feel that there is a place that we can lay our heads, that we can afford to call home, and a place that we know our neighbors also have our back. Thelma Caldwell and so many others have given us a great city for which we are now the stewards. And my concern at the moment is that as we emerge out of the pandemic, there's not a clear vision for Asheville. We're leaving people behind because we don't have an intentional plan to move forward. Thelma Caldwell was a great example of collaborative leadership. That's the work I've done in my career in higher education, as well in small business, is to bring folks around the table together who may not be on the same page politically or otherwise. We are stewards of this great city, and I think that there is more opportunity for your members of council to make sure that you're heard and that we're working together to build our Asheville.
Fantastic. Thanks to all three of you for the opening statements. We'll now move on to questions. And for this round, we'll begin with Tod Leaven, then we'll move to Kevan Frazier, then we'll move to Bo Hess, and then have the opportunity for any rebuttals after that. Since at least, Asheville is experiencing what some have called a crisis in homelessness. What is your experience with this issue, and what strategies should the city of Asheville and the city council in particular pursue to help people who are unhoused in our community? So we'll begin with Tod.
Thank you, Chris. Great question. Strong question. So you asked for my personal experiences. After law school, I graduated law school in 2010, and I was living in the Triangle. And my twin sister, who was actually unhoused, living in the streets in Asheville, was killed. She had a 10-year-old daughter at the time, so my wife and I decided to move back to Asheville to help my parents raise my niece, whom we have subsequently adopted as our daughter. And it had a profound effect upon us because, well, A, I realized that the unhoused are people and they're not problems. But B, I also learned that you can't arrest your way out of it. At the same time, you can't just blindly enable. Greg Colburn, who's a professor from, I believe, somewhere out west, maybe Washington State, came and gave a great lecture like a month and a half ago about how the homelessness is a housing problem. And he's right. It was incredibly fact-based. He talked about how the reason why there's such an issue with the unhoused in Asheville and in Seattle, but maybe not in Miami or Chicago or Houston, is because of the housing prices. So where Asheville is, we are really focused on pulling people who are currently experiencing a crisis of being unhoused, and we're taking care of their needs. That's wonderful, but we're not really developing. We're not building enough units so that people can actually have affordable housing. I know in Asheville, development can be a little bit of a four-letter word, but we need to develop affordable housing. And I think that'll have a profound effect upon our unhoused crisis that we are currently going through. Thank you, Chris.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. Kevan?
Thanks, Chris. I live downtown, and so it's something I experience every day. And I think what the city and the county are doing right now is the exact right path, and that's the continuum of care model. Over the past year, city and county staff have been pulling together with all of the nonprofits who serve the unhoused to be able to pull together a continuum of care model. The challenge is, if folks need assistance, it's really hard to get them in at the right points. And so this moves us down the path to have a much easier point of entry to take care of folks. I grew up in a household where everybody had no bad words were ever said about anybody because of the color of their skin, their gender, their sexuality. I was always taught to love our neighbors and to love all our neighbors, not this neighbor and not that neighbor. And whether folks are housed or unhoused, they're all our neighbors. And so I think by focusing on the continuum of care model and making sure that it's successful, we'll be able to address homelessness. The other issue, of course, will be that the city needs to be able to provide the support both in policy and at times in finances to be able to expand our shelters and the number of places we have for folks to lay down their head. That's also working with the nonprofits that do this well. And so our role as City Council is to support that work within our community so that we can take care of our neighbors.
Great. Thank you so much. And to Bo.
Yes, thank you so much for this question. This is an important question. And as I'm knocking on doors, as I'm on the campaign trail, this comes up over and over. My experience is the past 10 years, I have worked on an inpatient psychiatric unit with people dealing with severe mental illness and addiction. And about 40 to 50% of my patients at any given time are experiencing houselessness. I also have and continue to volunteer at ABCCM, working with their houseless population, providing psychotherapy to men who are houseless and maybe dealing with addiction as well. And also involved with the Street Dog Coalition, which is a group of volunteers, and there's a veterinarian that helps people who have pets that are on the street get animal care and veterinary care for their animals. This is a issue that is dear to our heart, and we must go about it in a multifaceted way. And that includes providing affordable housing and good paying jobs to keep people out of these vulnerable situations. We must increase diverse housing options, everything from transitional shelters to homes in the hundreds of thousands and everything in between. Apartments, studios, workers housing as well. We need a coordinated entry service program that will connect people experiencing houselessness to resources in their community. We need somebody who will bring people together and bring the diverse group of stakeholders that we have and enhance and continue to fund those. This includes community paramedic programs, peer support programs, outreach programs, making sure that we have clinicians and social workers in our transitional living spaces, and making sure that none of our brothers and sisters are being left behind in the cold and without the services they need. We need to invest in wraparound services and even in novel ideas like citywide employment, daily employment that can provide employment to people maybe getting graffiti off our street or cleaning our sidewalks. We should be engaged in pragmatic solutions that make getting into the system easier. And that's what I intend to do as your city council member.
Great. Fantastic. And up to 2 minutes for rebuttals or responses. Todd?
Yeah, I agree with Kevin and Bo, and I definitely think the city's doing a great job with the continuum of care and the wraparound services. I do want to caution, though, as a city, focusing on the current unhoused, I think is a wonderful thing to do, it's an important thing to do, but it's focusing upon the Band-Aid over the symptom. And I think if we really want to get out of where we are, we need to develop significant more housing. I think affordable housing, addressing that, will help stem the river that is flowing into our current unhoused crisis. So that is all. Thank you.
Great. Fantastic. Kevan?
Yeah, absolutely. If we don't have places for folks to lay their head, and that's at all folks, whatever their current housing situation is, we don't have enough housing stock in Asheville. We also don't have a strong enough policy in through the city in terms of affordable housing. And so the studies all over the country are very clear that the more housing you have, the less homelessness you have. And so it seems simplistic, but it's really an important and powerful tool that if we don't have places for folks to lay their heads, we're going to continue down the path that we have. It's important for City Council to pull out any kind of obstacles that are preventing us from having not only shelters, but all forms of housing at all economic levels.
Bo, do you have any up to 2 minutes for a rebuttal or response if you'd like one?
No, sure. No, I'm glad my fellow colleagues and candidates agree with me that we need to increase our diverse housing options. Again, everything from apartments, studios, work-live spaces, tiny homes, transitional shelters. Utilizing in a smart way our city fund, we can dedicate these resources to those that are most vulnerable. Collaborations with local nonprofits, making sure that our land trusts and rent subsidies are reassessed every year. And maybe we do blind rent subsidies so apartments don't know who's getting those rent subsidies, so they can't discriminate against those who have them. Again, as a leader, I will listen to experts and support innovative solutions to this very complex issue.
Thank you so much, Bo. So I'll ask another question in just a second, but in terms of order, we're going to start on this one with Kevan Frazier, and then we'll go to Bo, Hess, and then we will go to Tod Leaven. So since at least 2012, there's been talk in Asheville of creating a business improvement district as a way to raise funds to improve downtown Asheville in ways that improve services for this critically important part of our city. Recently, the Asheville Area Chamber of Commerce sponsored a readability study draft management plan to assess community thoughts around the idea. What's your take on a business improvement district in Asheville, and what should the city council's role be? Kevan?
Thanks, Chris. I am a complete supporter of the business improvement district. Business improvement districts have been around since the 1970s. There's more than 1,000 around the United States. 50 in North Carolina. We are the only major city in North Carolina without a business improvement district. The business improvement district provides taxation within a specified area. In the case we're looking at, it's the central business district, to generate greater resources to go above and beyond what taxes pay for in city services. The focus right now for a business improvement district in Asheville would be cleanliness and safety. Those are absolutely the top priorities for both businesses downtown and for residents. I live downtown in the central business district, and I also have a business downtown. And my taxes will increase with that, but I am glad to participate in that because I think that the services that we're going to provide will be really useful to create a safer downtown and a cleaner downtown. The city council's role is, of course, to create the business improvement district. And then frankly, the business of city council is to step back and let the nonprofit that creates run the business improvement district. The power of a business improvement district is those that are paying into it have direct control over the district with the assistance of the city, but with them providing the leadership. And then North Carolina state law provides that the city be in consultation with the business improvement district and make sure and oversight, but really letting the folks in the district run with it and do the good work that we need to be done in downtown Asheville.
Great. Thank you so much. Bo?
So when I speak to business owners downtown, when I went to go learn more about this at the Asheville Chamber of Commerce and sat with experts, sat with people who had really done a feasibility study to look at what were the pros and cons. The overwhelming majority of individuals really supported the business investment district. My job and as a leader is to listen to constituents and listen to voters and make sure that we're moving towards a vision that they want. And I think that this is something, especially when we're dealing with safety and cleanliness, that can enhance our downtown area, bringing in safer, more cleanly place for the people who live here and the people who also visit and work downtown as well. And this is a mutual collaboration between the city and this business investment district. For city council, our role would be to make sure it's done in an equitable manner, making sure that a majority of businesses in the district are on board, approving the district every year, and making sure that it runs in coordination and in collaboration with the city services that are already there. And this is an exciting time where we have forward-thinking candidates, and we have a lot of energy out there in Asheville, and we can create the Asheville that we want for all residents. And again, it may take novel ideas, but we can get there.
Fantastic. And Tod, 2 minutes.
Thank you, Chris. There's really not much I can add upon what Kevin and Bo said, except for I have to say the fact that we're talking about a business improvement district means that the city has failed downtown businesses. Okay. I think there's an inherent danger that if the city businesses pool together their funding to take care of additional security and cleanliness, that there's a fear that the city might say, oh, downtown's taking care of themselves, pull resources out and disperse them amongst the rest of the city. I think the fact that our police department is underfunded, I think the fact that we've kind of gotten away from public safety and infrastructure necessitates a business improvement district. And because of that, also being a city business owner, I support it. I'm in full support of a BID, but we absolutely have to make sure that what happens this time is not the same thing that happened last time. The city can't hold the purse strings. I completely agree with Kevin that the stakeholders themselves are in charge. So again, I think it's unfortunate that we have to talk about a BID because we shouldn't have to. The city should be able to meet its requirements. But since we are, and we're going to be solution-minded and not blame-centric, we can go forward with the BID. I think we need to make sure that it's done well and that the stakeholders are in charge, especially the purse strings and especially the planning. That's it, Chris. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks. And up to 2 minutes for rebuttal and response. Kevin?
A couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to do an inner city visit in Chattanooga. And one of the things I'd gone there to see was what a business improvement district looks like. And so I'm downtown and meet one of the ambassadors, which is a key part of any business improvement district program. She didn't know who I was or what I was there. And we just started carrying on a conversation. And she noticed that over in the corner, there was a fellow who was asleep at a shop entrance and it was about time for the business to open. And she went over kindly, humanely and said, Joe, you can't be sleeping here. You know, it's time to get up. And he knew her by name. And he was like, Alice, I understand. And then she said, Joe, do you need any food? Do you need anything? He said, no, I'm good today. And that's the kind of work that having folks on the street can help with. You didn't need to have a police intervention there. You simply needed to have a helping hand. She would also tell us that if he had needed other kinds of services that day, she was trained and able to get him connected within Chattanooga to the services that could help him that day. That's the kind of thing that having folks on the street with a business improvement district helps. That again ties in with some of our other key issues, such as taking care of the unhoused. So I think all of those things can come together well. But also it is things like cleanliness, that if some of the ambassadors are on the street and they see trash cans overflowing, they make a call into city sanitation. If there's some graffiti that needs to be removed, they're pulling out some cleaner and taking it off the building. Great ways to improve our downtown now and for years in the future.
Thank you very much. Bo, up to 2 minutes.
I just wanted to highlight and kind of expand more. So absolutely, I believe that all the business owners in the business improvement district should have full say over the activities that it partakes in and spends its money on. However, I want to say that regardless of whether business improvement districts are approved or they move forward, I am committed to making sure that we have these types of services, this type of friendliness, this type of welcoming, thriving Asheville that every single resident and person who works here deserves. Regardless of a business improvement district, these are the things that we can work towards.
Chris, I actually don't have anything else to say. Thank you very much.
Thanks. I appreciate that very much. So we'll move on to the next question. And for this one, we'll begin with Bo Hess. Then we'll go to Tod Leaven, and we will conclude with Kevan Frazier, and then once again give opportunity for rebuttal or elaboration for another 2 minutes. As you know, all three of you know, North Carolina is not a home rule state. And what that means is that local governments and municipalities in North Carolina must work in consultation with the state government on many issues. Sometimes that relationship has been productive and collaborative. Other times it's been tense. How do you see the relationship between the city of Asheville and state government? And if you're on council, how would you work with the state to get better outcomes for the city and its residents? So we'll begin with Bo.
You hear me okay? There we go. So yes, my number one way of working with anybody is collaboration. Even my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, we can work to get things done together. My number one focus is the residents of Asheville, making sure that we are taken care of, we have economic security, that we are addressing the issues that we need to address. So if that means finding common ground with somebody to make sure that we get those things here in Asheville, I will do that. As a social worker, I have many patients who come from all walks of life and all political backgrounds. And I've never, not once as a therapist, asked somebody, what is your political affiliation or what do you think about this? But what we do is we get to work finding common solutions, working collaboratively to make sure that we can have pragmatic interventions that have a positive impact on their life. And that is what I commit to doing as a city councilor, is working with people, finding common ground, and working towards our collective goals.
Okay, Chris, I think earlier I said that development can be a little bit of a four-letter word in Asheville. I think crossing the aisle politically can also be a little bit discouraged. I think Asheville has a terrible relationship with their General Assembly. I think it's because we pick a lot of fights that we really don't need to. Now, when the mayor took the General Assembly to task over the watershed, yes, absolutely necessary. Fighting the General Assembly on districting of city council, probably not necessary. I think we need to realize that sometimes the best way to serve people in Asheville is to actually get along with people in the General Assembly. The fact that so many of our sales tax dollars leave Asheville and they go to Hendersonville because the General Assembly likes Hendersonville more than Asheville. It's important. It's something we need to be cognizant of. And I think if we can't get along and can't be adults, then I think Asheville is always going to be kind of the redheaded stepkid of the North Carolina municipalities.
Great. Thank you so much. Kevan.
Chris, I have worked for 25 years in public higher education in North Carolina. And the one thing you learn as a public higher educator is that you have got to walk down the aisle. In some years, the Democrats were in control of the assembly, and in some years, the Republicans are in control of the assembly. And in the end, the focus is education. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle they're on. You look for the common ground to take care of our students. And in this case, we're taking care of our residents. And I believe strongly that we need to work cooperative with the General Assembly. We need to be cooperative first within members of City Council, that they work together in collaboration. Then also with the members of the County Commission. Those bodies need to work together, and then those working together with the General Assembly. If we come up with our own little fiefdom and we don't want to play well with others, or we want to just take our ball and go home, we are hurting our residents. We are not doing our job as a city council and taking care of the people of Asheville. Right now, I am concerned about the potential of a bill that would end the ability of city councils to manage Airbnbs. I think that would be devastating to Asheville. I think it would throw, for all the challenges we have with affordable housing right now, that would throw that in hyperdrive. And the only way that we'll have success will be to work together with members who that's on their mind to have a bill like that to go through, and us to work to say, hey, this is why this would not be good, not only for Asheville, but for Wilmington and Durham and Charlotte and Greensboro and Winston-Salem and all the other cities as well.
Thank you so much. And so we'll go back around for rebuttals or elaboration for up to 2 minutes apiece, and we'll go to Bo next.
So Asheville is the most beautiful place in North Carolina with the hardest working people, and I'm not ready to give up on Asheville. And if that means working with people who don't see completely eye to eye with you on every single issue to make sure that we get real results for Asheville's citizens, then that is what I will make sure I do. And let me give you an example. I was able to speak with Representative Chuck Edwards. And, Representative Chuck Edwards and I are probably polar opposites on most things. But what we do have in common is we have a passion for helping those who are struggling with mental illness. And so we were able to discuss novel issues of mental illness and houselessness. I was able to, encourage him to, learn more about the issue and go out and speak to people who are really struggling in the moment. And so when we are able to have those conversations, we can get real change accomplished for the good for all of us.
Tod, up to 2 minutes on this one again.
Thank you so much, Chris. Again, I have very little rebuttal, except for that I believe that actions speak a lot louder than words. And I think the fact that we have a room here of candidates who have said that we are willing to cross the aisle for the betterment of Asheville, I think is wonderful. I think it bodes well for our city, and I'm looking forward to seeing it happen. Thank you very much.
Chris, one of the things I've really enjoyed about being on the campaign trail with Bo and Todd and all the other folks who are running is we're playing really well together. We're not battling each other. There's some things we disagree on, though we all agree that we want to listen to everybody and make sure we're building the Asheville that folks want and build that together. And I think we all know that we hopefully are going to be working together on city council, and we want to build those relationships right now. Life's about relationships between human to human. And when we separate ourselves for that, we're not doing our best work. I had mentioned about Thelma Caldwell earlier in the broadcast, and that's a great example of pulling together collaborations of folks that just didn't agree with each other. And that's our work moving forward. We got to get folks around the table, find that common ground, and then we can do good work for the residents of Asheville.
We'll move on to the next question. And for this one, we'll begin with Tod and then go to Kevan and then go to Bo. Crime in Asheville has been a topic that has spilled out beyond the city's border. New York Post, Fox News have featured what they describe as a spike in Asheville crime. Congressman Edwards recently held what he called an anti-crime summit at AB Tech. Others, of course, have pushed back against this narrative, calling it inaccurate, not backed up by facts. What's your take about crime? What's your take on crime in Asheville? Is it rising? Is it a problem? And perhaps most importantly, what is the proper role of the city council in this debate? Tod?
Great question, Chris. I think crime, like many things, is a political football. And I think when people find something that they can use as a wedge issue in order to get elected or reelected, they will definitely exploit it. Like I said prior, I first moved here in '85. I think crime now is significantly better than it was in the '80s. Downtown is significantly nicer. I think crime now is better than it was in the '90s. I mean, Asheville is a lovely city. It is not a crime infested haven of drugs and prostitutes. I mean, it's a wonderful place to live. I think the fact that our police department is underfunded and understaffed, I think there has definitely been an uptick in crime. I think it's gotten to the point where just the general, not necessarily violent crimes, but those two, that petty crime, the cleanliness, I think is having an effect upon our tourism industry. Some people like that, some people don't. I think it is always a negative thing to kill the goose that lays the golden egg in Western North Carolina. I think the role that city council has to do is, I think we need to focus on our core city services, and public safety is at the top. I mean, it is inexcusable that we have billboards on 240 that advertise what police departments in Georgia are paying. And they're significantly more than what we're paying here in Asheville. I think we need to pay our police significantly more, and I think that'll help. I don't think, again, that we can always arrest ourselves out of everything, but police officers need to be able to afford to live in the city that they serve. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Kevan?
Thanks, Chris. I think this is one of our most important issues. First and foremost, the streets of Asheville are not flowing with blood, as some media outlets would make you think. But we do have a challenge in public safety. We do not have enough officers on the ground, and we don't have a robust enough coverage to make sure that we are handling particular situations with the right folks. If it doesn't need armed law enforcement, then let's make sure we've got the right folks there. I think the paramedic program, the community paramedic program that's been going on, that piloted to great success, is an exact right path that will bring the right kind of providers out for the right situation. In terms of the police, the role of City Council is to make sure that it is funded appropriately and that it is staffed appropriately. I met last week with Interim Chief Lamb, who's doing great work to make sure that we get our numbers up. We are more than about 34% down on the force still since before the pandemic. We need to work to get those numbers up. And one of the main areas we need to do that is by bringing lateral entry, folks who are already officers. It takes 14 months to create a new officer, but we need to bring folks that want to come live in Asheville and are able to come live in Asheville and put the right packages together for their compensation that can include some support on housing as well. But one of the key things is right now we don't have the right retirement benefits in regards to health care so that it would attract lateral entry. That's the kind of sort of behind the scenes work that City Council needs to do to make sure we're taking care of our police department so they can do good work for our citizens.
Great. Thank you so much. And Bo?
Yes, let's be clear. Public safety is the cornerstone of a flourishing Asheville. Our city thrives when every single resident is secure to live, work, love, and enjoy life right here without the threat of violence. My approach to public safety combines compassion with action. By boosting innovative critical safety infrastructure like increased lighting on our streets in Asheville, making sure that we have summer programs for our adolescents and teens and young adults, increasing funding for our community centers and parks, increasing opportunities and equity in business, of course, paying a living wage, supporting first responders who are responding every day, working to keep us safe, making sure that marginalized and vulnerable populations are also safe, and responding to the record number of overdoses and mental illness crisis. We can boost community paramedic programs and have dedicated professionals like social workers and mental health experts that respond, much like my colleague Kevin said, to issues so that police officers are free to actually respond to things like crime and violent crime. True safety includes dignity and empowerment. As a law enforcement trainer for the past 10 years, training law enforcement officers all over Western North Carolina in mental health issues, personality disorders, addiction, psychosis, I understand that they want to do the best for our community. And so making sure that they have the resources, education, funding, and pay that allows them to be involved and integrated into the communities that they serve. Electing Bo Hess means electing a more proactive and a humane approach to public safety.
Great. Thank you so much. And I'll take maybe a point of privilege, if it's all right, with our three panelists. We're running a little tight on time, and I want to make sure that we have time for at least one more question. And then, of course, you guys have your 3-minute closing statements. So unless anybody has a huge objection, maybe we'll skip over rebuttal on this question and go to our one last question. Great. Thank you, all three. So for the final question, we'll begin with Kevin, and then we'll go to Bo, and then we'll go to Todd. And here's the question. Over 3 years ago, the city of Asheville, as you all know, passed a reparations resolution. And almost 2 years ago, the city council appointed the initial membership to the Reparations Commission. How do you assess the city's progress on reparations? And again, as with most of these questions, perhaps the most important part, does the city council have a role to play at this point? If so, what would that be? So we'll begin with Kevin on this one.
I am really proud that our city made a bold jump to deal with reparations. And of course, we're not talking historically 40 acres and a mule. Nobody entered that conversation thinking that's what this was about. But it's how do we heal from centuries of structured racism to be able to come together as a community. I'm really thankful that our city council 3 years ago, as well as our county commission, together made that leap. And the work's been continuing through the Reparations Commission. I'm concerned that right now there seems to be a push that as the commission's asking for additional time, they need to be given additional time. We didn't get to this place overnight. This is literally centuries of racism and legalized racism, and now in segregation. This doesn't heal itself instantaneously. And so I think it's important that council and commission give the commission time so that they can complete their work and be able to bring their ideas for how we move forward as a community. And then it'll be up to both governments to work together so that we can address what the call is and see how we can best serve our community. Being able to meet this work through reparations isn't just important for our historically Black communities, it's important for all of our communities. When anybody is not treated fairly and with justice, we are all sufferers of that. And we need to be sure we're giving the Reparations Commission time to do its work.
Great. Thank you so much. Bo?
Yes. Thank you for this important question, and very proud of our city for moving forward with this. And my background in social work, public health professional, mental health, deeply informs the stance. We say in social work, there is no justice until there is economic justice. And historical underinvestments, especially in communities of color, have disproportionately harmed our Black brothers and sisters. And this exacerbates everything from mental health to economic insecurity. I think the thing that I would move towards is what can we do right now as a city council to address equity and start moving towards a more equitable future. We can start by working with the commission to assess land tax rates, making sure that we aren't taxing a house on Burton Street for their land more than we're taxing a house in Biltmore Park or one of the other wealthy neighborhoods. We can talk about after school programs, summer school programs, free lunch programs, a city college and scholarship fund. Let's go ahead and get these things started right now, today. Sure, let's let them give time, but a lot of the things in my platform, because I am focused on working class and economic and BIPOC justice, actually work to improve equitability right now. So yes, I support it, one, and then let's move towards a more equitable future right now.
Great. Thank you, Bo. And we'll close out this one with Tod.
Thank you, Chris. So I know enough to know that I do not have all the answers. I do know that Asheville City Council has absolutely no place micromanaging the Reparations Commission. They have a job. They're doing the job. It is not our place to tell them what to do or how to do it. And that's just full stop. That's it.
Great. Well, thank you so much. We will end on that full stop then, and we will move into closing statements. And this will mirror the way we actually begin with opening statements. So we'll start with Bo Hess, who has up to 3 minutes to give his closing statement. Tod Leaven up to 3 minutes, and then Kevan Frazier up to 3 minutes. And I will, on the front end, thank everybody for listening, and once again thank our participants, not just for being here today, but for putting themselves out there and running for office and trying to further our city and our region. So with that said, Bo, you have 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you again, Dr. Cooper. Thank you, WPVM. Thank you to the other candidates. And thank you to the Asheville residents and voters for exploring your options for Asheville's future. I am not ready to give up on Asheville, and we can make the Asheville that we want. As a devoted social worker, therapist, addiction specialist, law enforcement trainer, my heart belongs to this city and every single one of its diverse residents. My campaign is a rally for those who have often felt unheard, a rally for the voiceless, bringing those that are long overlooked into the fold and into and at the tables of power. My campaign stands firmly on these transformative pillars. 1, ensuring safe communities and addressing crime. 2, tackling homelessness, addressing our mental illness and addiction issues head on. 3, bolstering our critical infrastructure. 4, promoting economic security and stability for all residents. And 5, enhancing our multimodal forms of transportation, greenways, and community programs. I am focused on mental health and inclusivity. And my vision really is to forge an Asheville where every resident prospers, where we safeguard a vibrant city that we can keep for generations to come. Join me on this journey. Find out more at letbohess.com. We have a launch party Friday, February 9th at the Wedge from 6 to 9. We would love to see you there. I'll see everyone on the campaign trail. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you, Chris. I'll make this really short and brief. Core city services, I think, are incredibly important. I think the city needs to recenter itself on public safety, infrastructure, water, public transportation. The reason why people choose to live in a city is for municipal services. I think it's wonderful that we have a lot of stuff going on in the periphery, and that's great. And it's one of the things that makes Asheville unique and a wonderful place to live. But we can't have all of this at the expense of what a city is supposed to do. Public safety, first responders, infrastructure, water. That is what we're supposed to do as a city, and do it with fiscal responsibility. In addition to that, of course, affordable housing. And I'm going to say it again, affordable housing. Affordable housing. We need to work on affordable housing. Asheville has an affordable housing crisis going on right now. And I think tackling affordable housing won't only help with a lot of the issues that we have here, especially being able to live in the city, but I think it'll have a drastic effect upon the current unhoused crisis that we are experiencing. So core city services, affordable housing, and the unhoused. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris and WPVM. From Oakland to Malvern Hills, from Grace to Royal Pines, I believe that Ashevilleans want to live in a community in which they feel welcome and safe. We want to live in a community where we know we belong and we know our neighbors have our backs. We want to live in a community where we can find meaningful and prosperous work, enjoy a reasonable cost of living, and benefit from careful environmental stewardship. That's the community I want us to build. It's what I'm drawn to naturally as an educator, business owner, advocate, and native. I'm the executive director of WCU programs in Asheville and Biltmore Park. It's rewarding work. I help people achieve for themselves, and I help attract high-paying jobs to Asheville that support families. I'm also one of the owners of Well Played Board Game Cafe and have experience as a small business owner and as a volunteer for LGBTQ+ as a business advisor. I'm a roll-up-your-sleeves type of person. When our team needs help at Well Played, I'm there washing dishes. As a member of City Council, I'll roll up my sleeves and focus on delivering responsive leadership that follows through on what our community wants and what it needs. My number one goal is to listen to neighbors and ensure that you feel heard, respected, and served by your city council. I have a long history of being collaborative and being effective. I'll put that work together for you on the issues we prioritize together. I'll take the long view, plan ahead, and be responsive, not reactive. We are stewards of a great city. Together, let us set and implement a shared vision for Asheville. And together, let us do the work that will advance our entire community. I grew up in a household where everybody had worth and was taught to love my neighbors, all of my neighbors. So let's take care of each other and together build our Asheville. Neighbors, I hope you'll join me next week on the 15th as I'm at Well Played Board Game Cafe at 5 p.m. as we kick off early voting. I'm Kevan Frazier, and I respectfully ask for your vote for Asheville City Council.
Chris, you have any closing statements?
No, just thanks and gratitude for all the candidates for running for office and putting their positions out there for a respectful forum. And I thought a number of the candidates said it throughout. It's nice to see folks running for office, running against each other in some ways, but also trying to find places of commonality. So thanks to all of you.
Yes, and I agree. Thank you all for throwing your hat in the ring for this important office for the city. This forum will be available on all social media platforms and YouTube and WPVM's political page. Go to WPVMFM.org, click on the political button up at the top of the page, and this audio will play on the radio up to the primary on March 5th. And do any of our candidates want to add an upcoming event or anything like that that they didn't get to say or didn't remember to say during the forum? Okay, everybody's good? Okay, we're ending the stream.